Hello and welcome back to this West London Sport podcast where myself, Dan Bennett, Ian McCullough, Ben Kosky and Kevin Gallen will be chatting the latest developments at QPR. I do have some kind of transfer bits I want to get onto later, but unlike the last time we did these, we do actually have some football to talk about and quite a lot of it as well. Obviously, the three games over the Christmas period, starting with that 1-0 defeat to Bournemouth, but back-to-back away wins to follow that. So, I mean, Kev, from what I kind of saw of the games, it almost seemed like maybe QPR weren't at their best in the two away wins, but they sort of found a way to dig in and get a result. Do you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, it didn't play as good as they have done in the previous sort of months. But look, you get 3 points, you get 6 points out of 6 away from home. I mean, you can't ask for better than that, and it doesn't really matter how you get them really at this stage. And if you want to keep in the playoff pack, or if you've got ambitions, that we do have a little bit of that ambition to get into the top two, we need to pick up wins, and they've done that, and they've done that well. They dug in well. Bristol City, they dug in well. Even though they had 10 men, there was a bit of pressure. The crowd were behind them in that second half, a bit of an atmosphere. And then to score from a set piece right at the death with Barbet, who I thought had a very good game and has been pretty solid at the last few months, and fair play to him, scores a great header at the near post. And then the Birmingham game, these are tough games away from home, cold, wet, Christmas, do you know what I mean? Good support from the fans. And, Willock's the second goal, Willock to sort of give us that buffer of a 2-goal cushion was an excellent goal, wasn't it? I mean, he's got the ball on the left and he's weaved inside, and then he's come out with a perfect finish with a whipped into the far corner. So great goal and 2 great results. And after the game against Bournemouth, where we didn't play well, Bournemouth were the better team, to come away with then 6 points out of 6 from the away games is a great effort.
Yeah,
sets us up nicely now, because I know there's a cup game, and then sets us nicely now as a little break, and then for the rest of the league campaign.
Yeah, like you say, it was such a good goal from Willock. I mean, what we all kind of big takeaways from the games, including the Bournemouth one as well. Like what's impressed you, and maybe what's not impressed you as much? What do you think need to work on going into the rest of the season?
I think just I don't think there's really much. I mean, I think the defence is pretty solid at the moment. I have to shout out to Jimmy Dunn. I think he's been excellent in the last few games. Solid, wins his headers, competes, is aggressive, and he sort of runs a little bit awkward, but he actually got a bit of pace about him, so he doesn't really get outrun. Also, and I think Seny Dieng's come back into form. He had, not that he was out of form, but I think I said it a few months ago, where last season he was an 8 and 9 out of 10 nearly every week. He sort of dropped down to a 7 this season. Now I think he's back up to 8, and he's having a great last a few games. So I think the defence is solid. Albert's come in at right wing back, gives you that attacking option. And also, I mean, Wallace, I thought against Bournemouth, looked really tired, really unfit. But then, a few games later, he gets his match fitness up and he's flying up and down that left. And I think Ian said it, and I agreed with him, that the last podcast, 2 podcasts, that a left wing back would be, for me, a good signing, because, and I mean a left-footed left wing back who knows that job, a specialised left back, left wing back, because if Wallace does get injured, we haven't really got that in the squad with McCallum being injured.
Did you, Kev, play in any teams like that where maybe you weren't playing the best, but you were kind of digging in and finding a way to get results? It's quite a good quality to have, isn't it? It's always a bit of a cliche when people say you're not playing well, but you're picking up results.
Yeah, I have played in the team when we got promoted in 2004, especially sort of away. Our home form was great that season, but our away form was okay. But we dug in and we'd win the odd game 1-0, or when we needed to get a draw, I think we played Tranmere towards the end of the season, and we didn't play particularly well, but we dug in and got a draw. So those sort of those games there. I mean, away from home, I mean, QPR's over the last few years wasn't great away from home, and now this season have been excellent. So they're grinding out results. And I think the reason why is because we can soak up, we've got such a solid defence and goalkeeper that we can soak up pressure. And now we've got pace with Willock on the counter-attack, and it helps. And QPR's pitch ain't as big as the majority of the other teams in the division, and there's more space for us to run in on that counter-attack. And we've got the pace to do it. And Andre Gray's there, Lyndon Dykes is a good runner, and Willock, Albert and on the right at the moment. And what's his name? Wallace is bombing up and down on the left when he's fit, and then, with his overlapping, it's been excellent.
Yeah, I mean, Ian, you went to the 2 away games. I think one was like you were covering it, and then one was as a fan, right? Is that? Yeah. I mean, what were your kind of impressions? Like, who kind of impressed you the most from the games?
I thought in the first half against Bristol City, that's the worst they've played all season.
I agree. Yeah, I thought it was really bad
to be kind of 3 or 4 down even before half time. I mean, Kevin mentioned Senny Dieng, and he kind of saved the bacon really, because many times QPR away from home, again they're kind of expected to win. That it's all over by half time. We've seen it before so many times, and you just have to hang in there, don't you? Hang in there, and got the penalty right on the stroke of half time, which you couldn't say they deserved, to be honest. It was sort of the first attack they had of note, and and Charlie Austin atoned for that miss against Stoke with a decent penalty. And then second half they were better. It surprised me actually. I haven't been at Bristol City for a while, but that pitch is enormous. It really is a big pitch, and I mean in the first half they were just playing around QPR. Adoma didn't look match fit. He was struggling against O'Dowda on the left. But in the second half, they kind of grew into it. The sending off definitely helped. Johansson grew into the game, and Dykes coming on was a big almost turning point. That sort of changed the focal point of attack. And they got the win.
I want to interrupt you, but I was remembering the game when Dykes comes on, it gives you an outlet over the top with some pace, where before Charlie doesn't give you that in the first half. And it is, like you said, is a big pitch. But sorry, carry on. But you're right with the Lyndon Dykes.
In Austin's game it's crossing into the box and sort of finishing. That's his game. He's a better finisher than Dykes, but Dykes, does offer you more. But the game up at Birmingham, I thought was quite comfortable really for Rangers. They sort of did what they had to do. But I do think it's an evolution of this team, really, that, the Warburton first season, there was accusations the team was soft, couldn't defend. Nowadays, they've got a bit more steel about them. And as Kev mentioned, they've got the pace, and just sort of looking ahead now to where the fixtures coming up. 6 of the next 9 games are at home, and they're in a really good spot. You just hope. I mean, nowadays in the current environment, it's not just injuries you're worrying about, it's COVID and who could miss out on this and that. And you kind of hope the players that were unavailable over that sort of pre-Christmas period that had COVID or had symptoms of COVID, will be clear now for the next sort of 3 months, because this is the crunch time of the season, really. This is where you really make a statement of, whether you are going up or in the mix, or you're just going to sort of move down to mid-table. So obviously with the games in hand, I think they come at the right time. I think that Sheffield United game being called off was perfect timing for them, really. With the injuries and the COVID, Sheffield United were flying, and but you'd fancy them win that game in hand against Swansea, and then you've got home games coming up against Hull, Blackpool. Sorry, Dan.
Easy win.
Reading. you kind of look at it, and then you got an away game at Millwall. That's winnable. Middlesbrough at home, that'll be tough. But there's some winnable games coming up, and between now and sort of the end of February, there's a real good chance for Rangers to kind of, who knows, push for that top 2 spot.
Yeah, I agree about the Bristol City game. I was thinking that while I was watching the first half. This is like probably one of the worst halves of football I've seen since probably I've even been covering QPR, which was sort of Mark Warburton's first season in charge. When you think about the Barnsley game, obviously this season as well was pretty terrible, going 2-0 down and obviously having to bring off make a double sub. That was bad as well. But this was really, really poor, and I couldn't really put my finger on why. I mean, it just didn't seem to be much sort of link between the midfield and attack. They weren't really creating any chances and looked vulnerable defensively, but fair play to managers to turn it around. And from what I gather, it was a little bit better at Birmingham, although not the best performance as well. But I mean, Ben, Kev touched on it a minute ago, the Willock goal, obviously probably goal of the season if it wasn't for that Andre Gray strike at Derby a couple of weeks or a few weeks ago now. But he had quite a few games, didn't he, where he perhaps didn't have as much influence as he wanted or the team needed him to have on the games. But he just looks and continues to look like such a big talent, doesn't he, that QPR have got on their hands now.
No question about that, Dan. I mean, it's been interesting to see the last few games, Willock operating without Ilias Chair, because obviously the two of them, fill similar roles in the side, and with Chair obviously getting that injury and now going to be away for a number of weeks, there's kind of more focus on Willock to sort of do the creative work in that area of the pitch. And I mean, he's just flourished. I think somebody said earlier in the season he needs to believe what a good player he is, and you can see that kind of coming, where he's got that confidence now to just take players on and produce the kind of finish that we saw at Birmingham. You felt at the time watching that, you felt a second goal will just wrap things up, and then as it turned out, of course, they conceded again, or they conceded one straight away. But but ultimately it's proved to be the winner. And Willock has been sensational. I would certainly echo Kev's sentiments about Jimmy Dunn. I think he has been just getting better and better. If you're awarding player of the last, 2 months or something like that, Jimmy Dunn would definitely win it for me. And one other I think deserves a shout out, to be honest, is Sam Field, who is obviously feeling his way back into the side. I thought he was, for me, particularly impressive at Birmingham with the job he did, breaking things up in the middle. And again, just very, very encouraging to see. And I think if you look at that Christmas programme as a whole, you'd say 6 points out of 3 games, very good return. And as Ian alluded to, also very good to get those games played, because you look at the situation with COVID, a lot of clubs in the Championship hardly played at all over Christmas and New Year, and you would always much rather be the side that's got points on the board than the one that's got 3 or 4 games in hand, and then you need to win them all in a short space of time. So, yeah, I think things are looking pretty good as we come into 2022.
Yeah, it's going to be a really weird second half of the season, because there's going to be teams that probably get up into the playoff spots and are looking good, and then there's just teams, like you said, that haven't played at all that will just come in and overtake them when they play their games in hand. I mean, you look at the table, I think, like Ian, you mentioned Blackpool, obviously my team, I think we've played like 26 games, but the teams sort of in the bottom half have only played like 22, so they've got like 4 games in hand. And it's the same for clubs nearer the top, and then, one sort of pushing for the playoffs outside. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. But like I said, we do have some transfer bits to discuss as well. The main one being Steve Cook, who's obviously been reported, over the last few days, is having a deal agreed to join QPR, but it looks at this point now that he might be heading to Nottingham Forest instead. So we'll have to see how that one plays out in the next couple of days. But Kev, I mean, I know you said when we spoke a couple of weeks ago that obviously a central defender, you didn't really see that as a priority during the January transfer window. But if it happens that QPR do miss out on Cook, as it kind of looks like it's going to happen at the moment, do you think that is a bit of a missed opportunity there? Would you have liked to see him come in if he does go to Forest?
No, I'm not. I wouldn't be too bothered, to be honest. The only reason that I would say for him to come in is they must think Geordie Device isn't capable of getting fit or playing a certain amount of games. But I don't think I think the defence is as solid as it's been all season with Dickey, Dunn, and Barbet. I mean, if Cook did come in, who are they going to drop? I mean, the only one I would say they could drop would be Jimmy Dunn, and I don't think he deserves to be dropped because Barbet is left-footed. He gives you that balance on the left side of a 3-man defence, and you need that balance. Rob Dickey has been excellent since he joined the club 18 months ago. He can't be dropped, and Jimmy Dunn, in my opinion, shouldn't be dropped. So I don't think it's a massive blow other than maybe cover. And I see Connor Masterson is coming back. So that's another centre-half coming back into the club. So you've got 2 centre-halves with Device and Masterson as backup. Ian said it and I've backed him up. I think a left wing back just in case, because Wallace has picked up numerous injuries and you need a specialised left winger. Other than that, I wouldn't mind seeing another striker, just to give the team a boost. It's always great to see, if you're the manager and you look over at your bench and you're 0-0 and it's 20 minutes to go and you look and you've got options on the bench of a striker who can nick a goal. I think that, and maybe another, depending on Chair's injury or how long he'll be away in the African nations, maybe a loan for a number 10 for a couple of months. But it's difficult to get those players of that quality to come to the club. And you're looking at maybe youngsters or reserve players at the big clubs like Man United, Man City, those type who are playing in their under 23s, who are not really tried and tested in the Championship. Whether, I don't know if they're going to think about maybe try and get someone in goal. And I'm not saying as a starter, but a backup, because Dieng's going in the African nations. So I wouldn't be surprised if we're seeing a 2-3 players coming in January.
There's a lot of areas where they could potentially strengthen that make sense, but like I said, I don't think they'll do it all. They'll probably prioritize certain areas, and I do think QPR do need more depth at centre back. But I think I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago. The issue I kind of had with bringing a new centre back in was Masterson, who's obviously going to come back, but I don't think Wolverhampton wants to play him. I think he wants to see him go out and develop somewhere else. And obviously, club's trying to mount a promotion push, and he obviously doesn't feel that Masterson is the kind of, they need someone a bit more experienced, which I understand. But I think bringing Masterson, have him as the kind of backup option, which would be what I do. But I did like the when I've heard about the Steve Cook, obviously, that they were interested in, I did kind of like it. I mean, he's hardly played this season. I think he's only played about 3 times in the Championship or something like that. But he had a really good game at Fulham when Bournemouth played him a couple of weeks ago, showed he could still contribute. So I do think that would be a good signing. But like I say, at the moment, it does look like he's on his way to Nottingham Forest instead.
The thing is, Danny, we can't predict what will happen in the future regarding injuries. So the Cook one, yeah, only if we pick up like an injury, we'll keep one of those centre halves out for 2 or 3 months. At the moment, would you put Steve Cook straight into the team for the next league game?
No.
If he came, me personally, no. So
I suppose the only other reason would be just to cover yourself.
Yeah.
You never know. Someone might come in on the last day of the transfer window and offer 20 million for Rob Dickie. You've got someone that can just stop it. I'm not saying that will happen, and I don't think it will happen. But at the end of the day, the deal was in place. You'd agreed it, and then Forest have come in and offered more money. So, Forest is a big club. Can't blame him for going to Forest. But
I think there's another aspect to it as well, though, which is that for me, the argument towards bringing another centre back in would be it would allow you the option of Barbe playing left wing back on occasions, which I do think is a valid option.
No, I don't think he'll do that again.
Twice.
I don't think he'll do that again.
No, hang on. He's my point would be, and I disagree with what you've said about wing backs. For me, a centre back is the more obvious thing, because you're right, Sam McCallum is injured at the moment. He's not going to be injured forever. He is going to be back at some point, and I don't see the necessity to bring in another left wing back at this stage. You've also got, again, injured at the moment, but he will be fit at some point, Odibarjo. I think there are options there in the squad, and you've got to sometimes look at that about how you shuffle the pieces around. Another aspect you could say is not ideal, but again, we've seen Chris Willock do that job in games recently. So there are options there. And for me, if you did bring in another centre half, that does then free you up for, on occasion, someone like Barbe
I think Marston's more than adequate as a backup centre back. He's played enough games at this level, at League One level. He's not.
I think you're right.
When he's come in, but he won't play Barbe left back, wing back again after the debacle at West Brom. It won't happen again.
The thing with, look, we don't know the medical what behind the scenes. McCallum's torn his hamstring and he has had an operation on it, and that's a bad injury. Because unless I've had hamstring injury, unless you're 100% right and you go for a sprint, and when you're playing them, it's all right, you training up and down and doing sprints, and I've had it been there before, you're like doing it at 95% because it's in your mind. But when the ball in the match and the ball goes behind you and you've got a sprint and you're not thinking, you got to go and get the ball, and that hamstring can go like that. Ojabai, I'm going to call him Moses because I can't say Moses. He's got injury problems. He's had it in the last few years, and he's had it this season already. Wallace, has had injury problems last season and this season. So I'm just saying cover. I know what you're saying, maybe move Barbe, but Ian's there said, you know, what happened against West Brom. And yeah, Barbe, look, gives you balance on the left side centre half if you play free at the back. And that means a lot. I mean that. And that, as a striker, it means a lot because when the ball comes out to him, he can now roll it into either chair thing. If you're right-footed, you're always coming in on your right foot. And it just closes down so many angles and options for you. It's very important to have balance in your playing free at the back, a left foot on the left side and a right foot on the right side. Massive.
I just think as well, they need, like they haven't, we've mentioned it before, they haven't had it since Bright Samuel left, but to have someone off the bench that just says real pace, they can just frighten the life out of, you know, a team with 25 minutes to go. Samuel was brilliant at that. He did it numerous times coming on against Blackburn and teams like this and just absolutely terrify them, you know, particularly when you're behind in a game, just to change things up. Because you look at the Rangers bench, when there's much of a muchness. You know, you've got Gray, Austin, Dykes, George Thomas, whoever. They're all very similar sort of type. There's no point of difference. Someone can come on and make a real impact off the bench. I guess the same with Luke Amos as well and Field. These kind of guys, they're all good players, but they don't give you, they wouldn't terrify you if they came on as a sub. Do you know what I mean? They don't have that, you know, defenders have got to be on their toes. Oh, right, okay, we've got a real problem here. And I think I said to you before, that's the kind of difference between the Bournemouths and the Fulhams and the QPRs, just that real kind of real pace, real genuine. Fulham have got it in Cabano, Bournemouth have got it in Jadon Anthony, these types of players. Rangers haven't got that. That's what they need to address most. And if that means get another left wing back who can do that, great. But just a point of difference. Whether you get that on loan, whether you bring someone in, I don't know. But that's got to be more of an option for me than a centre back.
Someone else that I personally think should be a priority is getting someone in to replace Chair. I mean, there's been reports that QPR have sort of held discussions with Casey Palmer. I mean, from what we know, that was kind of just like one discussion. There's not, you know, anything kind of concrete there, but I guess he would be a kind of guy that would come in and do that. And I just think with Chair going to AFCON, you see QPR without Chair in the team, they look a lot worse. He makes such a difference, and I don't think they're going to be able to get anyone in January that can come in and do exactly what he does, but they can get someone in that can come in and I guess ease the blow a little bit. But Ian, you kind of don't agree with that, right? You think they could do without, really need someone to come in and replace Chair.
Oh, they'll miss Chair. There's no doubt about that. I missed him at Bristol City. I think on that big pitch, as I mentioned,
yeah,
he really would have been excellent. They really missed him there. But, you know, they got Chris Willock. He can play in that 10. And then he's kind of mixed it up with the midfield. Amos has come back into the side. You've got Phil, you've got Johansson. That gives him more of a free role, you know, and then going 2 up top. I mean, it's to go and bring someone in because you've got a player out for, you know, a month. Is it? I don't really see justifying it. Is it? I don't know. I don't know what Kev thinks and Ben thinks, but it just seems a bit.
I'm actually going to agree with you for a change, Ian. So yeah, I think, as you say, when you're looking at a month or whatever, maybe you look at someone on loan. But again, I think it's a case of sort of shifting the pieces around a little bit. And if, for instance, as Kev mentioned, maybe they look for another striker, and if you have another option up front, maybe that gives you the option of doing as they did at Birmingham and playing 2 up front and just one player behind them, which would probably be Willock, in which case then your system arguably doesn't need a replacement for Ilias Chair. So I think you sometimes have to do that first. You have to look at what you've got and what you can shuffle around before you say we've got to go out and get X, Y, and Z.
I mean, they played, when Chair and Willock played, they sort of play with one striker and they're like 2 number 10s really. So against Birmingham, they played 2 strikers and Willock as the number 10. I mean, it's not a bad option. Away from home where you've got Gray and Dykes, like I was saying before, big pitch, you soak up a bit of, pressure, and you hit them on the counter attack with Willock, Dykes and Gray, who are all very quick and fast. It ain't the worst option.
Yeah, I think someone on loan to replace Chair, if that was an option, would definitely be something they could do. Maybe save the money to buy some opponent in other areas. But, you know, it's not just to replace Chair. I do think they could do with another number 10, maybe. And like you said, someone in that area, the attacking area with pace would be really good. Even if there's someone coming off the bench, I do think that would help massively. All right, we'll move on to some predictions then. Obviously, Rotherham coming up next in the FA Cup. They're having a very good season in League One, top of League One currently at the moment. Got a good striker in Michael Smith, not the darts player, who's scored quite a lot of goals this season. And on a great run of form as well. Kev, what do you think about this one?
Well, our FA Cup first rounds ain't the best, are they? Over the years. Look, it depends on what teams they play. QPR play. If QPR play a strong team, I think they'll be good enough to win. Let's be fair. QPR and Rotherham will both be thinking, "Do we need a cup run? Let's concentrate on the league." Rotherham will be thinking, "We're top of the league. We need to get back up after relegation." And QPR obviously thinking of promotion themselves. I think there will be a change around for both sides, and it depends on sort of who's got the better backup players. And I would say QPR have, because we're in the higher division, we've got better backup players than Rotherham. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 win QPR.
Yeah, I do think it's the kind of game where if Rotherham are going to go full strength, then it's like the QPR can't make too many changes. They've got to go pretty strong. And I think they have to do that anyway. But like you say, with Rotherham where they are in League One and QPR where they are in the Championship, you do think maybe an FA Cup run's not going to be the priority and that they will rest players. But yeah, I think there will be a few changes from either team, but I still expect to see like a relatively strong teams. And I'm going to copy you, Kevin, say 2-1. That's my prediction. I think it'll be a sort of narrow win, maybe like a late winner for QPR. Ben, what do you think?
I think, as you've just said, really, Dan, it's in terms of team selection, it's going to come down to whichever players Mark Warburton feels need minutes on the pitch. It's not a usual situation, Normally when we come to the FA Cup third round, and my view is always you pick your strongest team, come what may. This year, I think, is slightly different, partly because of the positions that, or the position in the league that Rangers find themselves in, and also because, unlike most years, they've actually had a cup run already this year and given it their all and done very well. And so I think there's maybe not quite that necessity to sort of make it such a focus as maybe I would normally say there is. But as you said, Dan, Rotherham, I mean, in great form, they bounce up and down between the divisions every year, and they look like they're going to come back to the Championship again. And I'm afraid I see them winning this, to be honest. I see it being 2-1 in their favour.
What?
Hope I'm wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, they're a good side. They're almost like the like a kind of like a West Brom, aren't they? Or like a Norwich of what they are between the Premier League and the Championship, just between the League One and the Championship. They just can't seem to get up and stay up. Ian, what's your prediction for this one?
They ain't that good. Well, it's pretty much the same team that went down last year, isn't it? That big lump up front, Michael Smith. They're all right, Rangers should win this. He'll make changes, I think, but I don't think it'll be seismic changes. They haven't got a game midweek. They've got the game. They got a Saturday to Saturday week. So I imagine Andre Giselle probably coming to the side. Don Ball, these types of players. They're not. It's not a weak side. I don't think it'll be a weak side. The keeper will change. Interesting to see how he goes. It'd be a good test for him because they are a very direct side, Rotherham. See how Jordan Archer sort of copes against them, because if he struggles against Rotherham, it could be a bit of a worry going into the West Brom game last week, because they love a long throw and a ball in the box. I think you'll rest Johansson, but I mean, really, Rangers haven't got a huge squad to kind of make wholesale changes. I just think it will be sort of slight changes. I'd imagine he'll stick with the back three because they haven't. Marston might play, I don't know, but he'll definitely. I mean, I'd say there'll probably be at least 6 or 7 of the players that started against Birmingham will play against Rotherham, and they're at home. I would fancy them to win quite comfortably, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I reckon maybe sort of 2-0.
I think I agree. I think he will play like sort of 6 or 7 of the same players. I don't think he'll go, complete all-out changes. Yeah, see what happens. See if hopefully Ben's prediction doesn't come true.
Hopefully not.
Thanks for watching. Remember to give the video a like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll be back with another video very soon.